So now I want to turn to Chris Corse, who owns Conowingo Models, and Greg Cassidy, who doesn't own a company. He just builds models all the time. And they're going to handle our My Build segment for this show. And I understand we have quite a few people. So, Chris, I'll turn it over to you and Greg.
Thanks, Jim. Hey, Greg, how you doing?
Hi, I'm here.
All right. All right. This month is June. The June challenge is water. Looking for boats, bridges, rivers, lakes, ponds, beaches, anything that's water related. Father Ron, not to spoil it, really embodied that. So we'll get to that shortly. All right. And My Build, of course, is hosted by myself and Greg Cassidy. We've got the click for My Build survey. I put that on there and I'm like, you know what? I'll bet you that's not going to work. And it doesn't. You can't click on that once you're in Zoom. So anyway, all right. First up is Greg. Looks like you've got 9 slides tonight, Greg.
Wow. I didn't know I was sending that much.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm surprised that I'm first. Usually Martin has that honor, but
yeah.
All right, let's go.
All right.
Okay, so I sent in a couple of water features. This is the first one. This was a diorama that I built about 2 years ago. I had 2 Conowingo models that I had built that I thought went together really well, and I needed a diorama to showcase them and a couple other things that I was developing. So this is the Crunge Bridge, which I built a stream that went underneath. Next picture. And the other structure there is what's called Whispering Chapel. And I have those both together on roughly a 14 by 14 inch piece of foam. In order to make the water, I had carved it out of the foam, put in Envirotex, and then covered that with gloss medium from Liquitex and put in the ripples. Next picture. This is looking down on it from above, and you can see how I made the banks of the river, of the stream, out of Liquitex mud, or I'm sorry, AK mud, and then went ahead and filled it with the Envirotex and the gloss medium. I had to keep raising the bridge as I kept raising the water level, but you've heard about that before. Next one. And I went to get a couple of pictures with the sun behind it, because that way you really get the reflection off the water. And I thought that kind of enhanced the look of it. Plus, I like the way that all the shadows came out. Next one. Now, these are a couple pictures of my layout, which I'm in the process of adding more foliage to right now, more landscaping. But when I built it, I wanted a creek, and it runs from the backdrop all the way under the main line and out to the front of the layout. And you can see the stream portion of it on the left, and over on the right, it runs into what is essentially the banks of the Potomac River. And that's what I have there on the right. Ignore the lobster traps. There are no lobsters in the Potomac that far north. Next picture. The main reason that I had decided to put a stream was because before I was building the layout, I had found these cast hydrocal stone bridges, and I just fell in love with them. And I said, okay, well, if I have those, I might as well put a stream in place. And that's what led to it. And I'm glad now that I did it. It's something that I hadn't thought of until I got the bridge, but it was fun to do, and it's sort of a focal point of a part of the layout. Next picture. And here you can see where it runs up towards the back, and it curves to the right and goes up against the backdrop. Now, that bridge was actually an N-scale railroad bridge, but I turned it into a one-lane dirt road traffic bridge. It's removable, so I can get down and wipe the dust off of the water about every 12 months. Next. And here's where it curves and goes back to the backdrop underneath the main line. And this is very reminiscent of the Western Maryland's line as it was cutting across the Potomac River, going through Western Maryland. It bounced back and forth between Western Maryland and Virginia as the Potomac meandered along. And it cut through the mountains that would come all the way down to the Potomac River. And so you have a number of places where you have a bridge that leads right up to a tunnel entrance. And that's one of the things I wanted to model on my layout. Next. And then this is where the main line goes over the stone bridge that I had gotten. And then because it's sort of a glorified figure eight, the main line after a long route comes back and goes over itself. And that's what the upper bridge is. And if I do put on all of my coal cars at one time, I can actually have the train going over itself. But no, it's not the Tehachapi Loop. But anyway, those are my water features. I love working with Envirotex. I've used it on a couple of other dioramas. And as long as you make sure where you're pointed in isn't going to leak, I've had no problems with it. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I really, I can't get over the detail on that, on the stonework on that bridge. I mean, just look at that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And if you ask me now, I couldn't tell you who made it. I bought it back in probably the early 90s, before I really was building my layout, but I just knew I had to use it somewhere.
All right. Are there any questions for Greg before we move on?
I have one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about how you do your undercoat for like paint, gravel? Like what do you use? How do you do that?
Yeah, for this one, I had put down just a brown paint, and then I glued some gravel in place, and I put in some little twigs and everything, and then poured the Envirotex. But this was done back in the mid-90s when I really was still kind of new at it. Nowadays, for the dioramas that I build, like that earlier one, I'll use a couple of texture, they're sort of like paints, they're acrylics. AK makes some mediums that they call mud, and they have another one that they call dirt. And after I carve out the base and I'll paint it to seal whatever I'm putting it in, then I'll put that stuff in, which once it hardens, it's pretty substantial. And then I'll go ahead and put in some rocks or stones or twigs or whatever is appropriate on the bottom of whatever stream or river I'm building. I like those AK products for that.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to kind of point out also is, if I can get the right screen here. All right. If you remember last month, we talked about scenery and how much personally I like Martin Wahlberg stuff. I think a huge chunk of this stuff is Martin Wahlberg, isn't it?
Most of it is, yes.
Yeah, this is really what impressed me. I really like the birch on the trees on this one. And there was another photo in here somewhere, if I can find it. Yep, here it is. That tree on the right with all the moss on it. That is that's something special. How did you
That's some of that sagebrush that you get from out west. And there are a couple people on eBay and Etsy that sell the stuff.
Yeah. That stuff they just made everything just a little, well, actually there's a lot of Martin Wahlberg stuff on here, but usually just a little bit goes a long way, and in this case a lot went a huge way.
And that's what I'll be applying to my layout. It's only taken me about 30 years to get around to finishing it.
Yeah, you can never finish it.
No, especially at my pace.
Yeah. Well, all right, any more questions for Greg before we move on? Oh yeah, let's go back to this photo. Notice right underneath the bridge, you've got that tint of the of a dirty, muddy water. Now that's fantastic. All right. Okay, now we will go on. Leonard Davis, are you up, Leonard? Okay, I don't think he is, but he looks like he had 7 slides we can go over. And this, I believe, let me go to my notes here real quick. This is Proto 48. It's an engine house at Chaffee. I'm not sure if this is a kit or if this is something he scratch built. But this is some remarkable work on this.
It's all scratch.
Oh, you're up?
No, I'm not Lee, but I know his stuff.
Oh, okay. All right. Can you speak to it then?
Well, to some degree.
Okay. All right. We'll go on to the next slide then.
It's a double window. He used 2 windows to do that.
Oh,
He sandwiches, I'm not sure what he uses, sandwiches the see-through stuff in between 2 windows. So if you look at it from the inside, you also see a window.
okay. And there's the exterior view. I think it looks pretty big.
Well, low scale.
Yeah. There's the backside of it. Looks like it got some drums and stuff covered up on the backside. Little electric meter on the back too. And an interior shot with basically a backup with the doors. And it's just very, very nice work. There's another interior shot. It's got that whole structure done. That looks really sharp. And a couple more pictures of the inside, some detail shots.
What is
What?
how was the roof made, Chris?
I don't know. He didn't say.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Okay.
All right. Looks like that was it for Leonard. So thanks for contributing. All right. And we will move on to Bob Farquhar. You up, Bob?
Yes, sir.
All right. Looks like you've got 2 slides tonight.
Just 2, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This for the water.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the second harbor I did. That part of it's not finished yet anyway, but that basically the building on the left, it's builders, sorry. Oh, jeepers, come on, Bob. The one on the right here is the Sierra West from Texas, that kit. Other one's the in Boston. Oh, jeepers. I'll think of it too late. Go to the next picture anyway.
Oh, fine scale miniatures.
No,
Yeah, it looks
no,
like-
no. It's oh, I get it. That one there, this all the water is done with Liquitex and or golden heavy gloss gel. Originally I didn't know whether I wanted to do with inland waterway or ocean, and I ended up doing an ocean thing. But the heavy gloss gel, you can see the waves in there as well. And the building on the right, the first one there, that's by Foscale. It's the harbor. I call it the Harbor Masters, but the next one too is a Full Steam Ahead. Now they're out of business right now. And the problem I found that time with the Foscale kits, they're not built to scale. This all HO scale, by the way. They're not built to scale. And the building to the left of that, the Full Steam Ahead manufacturer, they're actually HO scale proper, and they overpowered the other building. There's about 2 inches of the building missing. I had to cut the bottom off the building to make it look more realistic. The next building, the weight building to the left of that, is the Sierra West from Texas. So is the next one. And the pier I built, scratch built the pier. All the piers are scratch built. And for the pilings, I used a 3/8 inch dowel and then burned them with a torch. to get the Kyoto effect. And the barnacles are N scale ballast, gray ballast. And then you go around past the to the left there. The next building is Billigen scale, and that's a dry dock. And the next one, that one is one I had a problem with because I've always Arkansas. Oh, I should have written it down. But anyway, it's a resin casting, and when I got it, it was really, really old, and everything was warped. I ended up throwing in the garbage, and I scratch built that for the similar type of dimensions and everything. And yeah, the paint of the paint on the ocean is a Tamiya black green. It's called XF27 is the number. And it gets a nice deep looking water. And yeah, nice thing with the heavy gloss gel, you can make waves quite easily. Then you can touch the dry brush, a little weight on it, and helps. And the red building, the Beckham's, that's another fine scale miniature. Sorry, Foss scale, I should say. And there's another whole story for that one. But originally, that whole thing had great big mountains across the back, and I got it all done. There's 632 molds I did, and I didn't like it when I got it done. I tore it all out and put this one here in. And the very left-hand side there is a lighthouse, and I thought it was too small for that area, so I got a kit from France. There's big taller ones, about a foot tall, and it was all warped. I ended up throwing that in the garbage and scratch building the lighthouse my own. So anyway, that's it.
Cool. All right. Any questions for Bob?
Yeah, Bob, when are you going to build another layout?
I don't know. This is all stuff but gone. This most has all been sold, and I'm thinking of doing another one for sure. I like water, I really do.
Well, you do beautiful work.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, looks fantastic. Any more questions for Bob before we move on? All right. Well, thanks, Bob. Appreciate your showing us your wharf there. So
Okay.
we move on, and Tom Farrell's up next. Yep, Tom.
I'm here.
All right.
So this is my Salt River Basin on Shantytown. It's a waterfront portion of my ON30 Old Gothic, rustic Buffin Old Gothic Railroad. Everything you see there is scratch built, with the exception of that fishing boat, which is a Frenchman River Models boat. And I did this over a 9-month period, late last year and early this spring. Go to the next slide. A little closer. The idea here was to make every roof, for example, different, every shanty different, so that they're all shanties on the water, on the riverfront, but they didn't really have too much in common with one another. So they gives you a nice realistic look when everything looks different. And the shanty town is immediately behind the fishing boats. You can see those shacks. And I think everybody's seen a lot of this before, but if you go to the next slide. So there's the Frenchman River Models fishing boat. I just want to pontificate just how good these kits are from Frenchman River Model Works. That boat behind is scratch built, and the rusted out hull that's in the right-hand picture bottom left, that's from Frenchman River Model Works as well. Just from a humorous point of view, all my fishing shanties, or most of them, are named after Gilligan's Island characters, not to take this hobby too seriously. So Skippers is the first structure I built for the waterfront. We go to the next slide.
Yep.
Yeah, that's scratch built. I built a kit, a Fosgate kit very similar to this for Sean Williams. And then I liked it so much, I scratch built one for myself. And it's interchangeable. You'll see another fishing boat that goes in and out of this scene. And the covered bridge is from my old layout. It used to be the centerpiece of my old layout. Okay. Yeah, so there's Skippers, and these are Artista figures. And I've mentioned this before, but figures really do bring these scenes to life. These are all pre-painted and just strategically placed. Makes for the appearance of action. Yeah. Okay, next one. There's Jim Seafood, fresh 7 p.m. every Wednesday, little parody there. And this was a Frenchman Rivers resin kit that I extensively modified to put a porch on there and a roof and a sign and whatnot. But it's a nice little building. Okay, next one. There's the Professor's fishing tackle. This one was difficult to photograph, and I put a black piece of construction paper behind it. Otherwise, you'd see the wall of my layout room. Okay. This is a nice, handsome structure as well. These guys are playing cards there. The barnacles are, just like someone mentioned earlier, those are end scale ballast, just glued on there with Elmer's glue. The water is an epoxy mix with Mod Podge on top of it. Next slide. This is perhaps my favorite one of the group, Thurston's Bait and Tackle. Some fortunes go up, some go down. This is scratch built like everything else. And in the background there is Gilligan's 3-hour tour bait shop, little levity here. And again, the figures are really bring this to life. Okay. This is looking down the left-hand photo. It's looking down the road that leads to Shantytown. You can see the shanties in the background. And it really is a nice little scene. It's approximately, I think about 6 feet in length and only 24 inches in depth. At some point, it's only 12 inches in depth. And there's Gilligan's bait shop. And see my spy there. Not exactly sure what he's doing.
Nobody
Right.
is. That's why he's a spy.
Exactly. I think that might be it. Let's see.
Yeah, it is. It got the L at the bottom corner there. So that's the
Yeah,
last
so
one.
thank you for featuring me. And you said on the water, and I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, it's great. How's your knee doing, by the way?
Well, I was surprised I could talk my way through this because my wife made me take a narcotic right before.
Oh, it just makes the talking easier. That's all.
But it's so far so good. My
Very good.
yeah, so I'm gonna cut out early tonight and go levitate in the other room. Okay.
All righty. Well, before we let you go, are there any questions for Tom?
Want to thank everybody for their support. You know, I'm on nearly a weekly basis, and I appreciate the interest. So we'll see you next week. Okay.
Yeah, fantastic modeling. Thanks for sharing, Tom.
Thank you.
Feel better.
Yep.
All right, next up we have a new entrant, Steve Halvarath. Halvarath, am I saying that right? You up, Steve?
It's Harvath actually, but
Harvath.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, looks like I botched the name. I'm
No
sorry.
worries. Well, yeah, I think I got 8 or so slides today.
Yeah, it looks like actually 18.
Wow. I don't know it. Well, anyway, we can go ahead and start.
Okay.
My modeling is in O scale, and it is my period is circa 1906, which I like because you can model wooden cars, but also early steel cars. So on the barge back there, you see a steel flat car and a gondola from, as well as these other things. So I really like doing the research and creating scenes that are based on real structures and boats and ships. This the tugboat in the foreground is called the Philadelphia, and it was a real tugboat, and some wonderful drawings, full-scale drawings were made when it was still a living ship. So the trick for me with using these documented boats is that most of the drawings that you find in historical sources are the full body of the ship, so that you got all the underwater parts that we don't want to show unless we got it up on the rocks or something. So finding the water line on a drawing, profile drawing of a boat is the tricky part for me. I love building the ship models as well as railroad models. And ship models, as some of you may know, are kind of a challenge because they aren't a rectangular cubical structure. They have curves in 3 or 4 directions. So you've got the bow is up high and it slopes way down to the center of the boat, and then the deck has to be curved so the water would flow off. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that was a typo on those 18 slides. What scale is this, by the way? Sorry.
This is O scale 1/48.
Okay.
Behind the tugboat, you'll see there's a barge, transfer barge, number 2. That's again, my research kicked in because nobody's really published a image or a drawing or engineering drawing of a railroad transfer barge that I could find, except I happened to run across a picture of a crane barge, and it turns out that the engineer building the crane barge actually used a railroad transfer barge as the base. So I got the design for the transfer barge from that drawing. One other thing that's interesting in this image is that you'll see that that if you're up here in the captain's cabin, you can't see over the freight cars to the other side of your barge. So unlike other tugboats, I built this one with the sort of standard freight car, standard tugboat. And what a lot of railroads did that had these kind of tugboats, they added a little lookout. So that you could have your crew member up there and they could tell you what's coming on the starboard side or the port side of your barge. So next slide, please.
Sure.
So here is a diorama I was working on with some of my models, and you can see I do have a lot of different ships and boats in it. Over here is a front from a warehouse on a pier, and I found a historic picture of a pier structure in Seattle. So I recreated that. And again, I love the harbor scenes because they are so busy and they combine these freight railroad as well as freight boats. So a lot of my boats are actually freight boats. And this white one up here in the right left is a scow schooner that from the San Francisco Bay. I found another drawing for it. But it is not a fancy yacht. It is a freight boat. So they would use them to haul hay from across the San Francisco Bay to the San Francisco itself or things like that. Next slide, I guess. So one of the things I'm really interested in is pier structures and water structures. This is a simple pier that would be for a fishing shack. This is the Poseidon Fish Company. For like your previous slides, I try to do Greek. So the tugboat is the Naiad, which is a Greek goddess, and this is Poseidon's Fish Company. And the boat in this scene is called a Florida Sharpie, and you can find wonderful drawings of fishing boats in some books that are historical documents. And again, I like the earlier comment about having these static figures in the scene. I think it does really brings things to life. So next slide, please. Well, one of my projects was to build a dredge. So this is the inside of a suction dredge that was used to build the sanitary sewer canal for Chicago. So I did a lot of research, and I found out that the dredge in particular had a Westinghouse direct application to a big centrifugal pump. So I tried to build a model of that Westinghouse steam engine. Next slide, please. Well, there's the dredge. It looks like a stern-wheeler steamboat, but it had to have a lot of it had 4 boilers in it because it had to pump this the sediment out through the back pipe. So another thing that would often be crowded into your harbor scene would be a dredge to keep the sediment out of it. All right, next slide. So I mentioned that I like to model different kinds of wharfs and piers. This pier, as I found, and the warehouse behind it, on a book called Buildings and Structures of American Railroads. And this is a railroad wharf. You can see the one set of tracks runs along the outside of the warehouse. And this design of the pier itself is also based on real piers. This pier would have accepted major freighters, seagoing freighters. So it had to be very substantial. So it's got a lot of pilings under it. It's got, heavy duty framing on it. The little rowboat is also something I found in a book called, I think it's Boy's Life or something like that, a book about how a boy could become a fur trapper. And there was a design for a little rowboat in it. All right, next slide.
There we go.
Oh, so here I've combined, this is a diorama I built, and it includes that warehouse front, but it also has a transfer bridge on it with this timber framing lift structure for the bridge. The bridge itself is this steel structure. This was based on a design from the Great Lakes, so there wasn't a lot of tidal action, but they did have to change if the lake level went up or down. They had to be able to move the bridge up and down. So here you see a big counterweight that would help a small steam engine lift or lower the boat. So again, I model it early 20th century, so very few motor vehicles, a lot of horse-drawn vehicles are here. So I don't know if that's the last one or not, but.
No, it looks like there's probably more. Let's see here. No, this is the last one.
Okay. So as I said, I like to build model ships, and that's what you see in process there. That's a what's called a stone sloop. It would carry big granite slabs from the coast of Maine down to other parts of New England. So it's a very wide bodied ship, but also the same scale as the other ones. But that's an example of how I make the ships. These are bulkheads that are based on the line drawings from the historical record. So they like I said, they curve over this way to keep the water off, and they curve this way and then they have to have that shape in the bow to cut through the water. So it's a challenge. So that's my contribution today.
All right. Is this are these styrene or various materials?
Well, let's see. The tugboat, well, let's see. These are all basswood and balsa. I have built this little freight boat. Behind it is styrene. That is one of the challenges is, of course, of a harbor scene is that a full-size freighter would be like 200, 300 feet long. So I had to find the smallest freight steamer that I could find. And this is a steamer from England, Scotland, called a Clyde Puffer. So, but it is actually a freight boat, but I built it out of styrene. So I could put rivet detail on it and things like that.
Right. So the one in the foreground, what's that one made out of?
It's basswood.
That one, oh wow.
And then I put some blocking inside to get the shape correctly. That's balsa wood.
Okay. Wow. Really nice job on that. All right. See, this is a very good example of why we like to do these challenges. It kind of pulls us as modelers in different directions and shows us all the different things we can do with this hobby. And this is exactly what the My Build challenges are all about. So, are there any questions for
Yeah,
Steve before
that's
we move on?
Steve, that's a beautiful ship. Do you wet the basswood to get it to curve like that?
Yeah, actually, you steam it.
Okay.
I take over the microwave and I get a Pyrex pot plate and and I do it when my spouse is out of the house, so she doesn't see me.
Uh-oh, she might catch this later. You
Uh,
should have kept mum.
But you steam these planks and then you can tack them onto the frame, and
Uh-huh.
they hold as they dry out, they'll hold the shape. So
Wow,
then you
that's
glue it.
beautiful. That's real artistry.
Yeah, I can't get over the detail on the bow. That's incredible. All right, any questions for Steve before we move on? All right, well, thanks for sharing, Steve. It's very much appreciated. All right, next up we have Sherry Johnson. Looks like Sherry, you've got 8 slides tonight.
Okay,
All right, you ready to roll?
ready to roll.
All right, here we go.
Okay, so unlike y'all, I don't really have any huge layouts. I basically build little dioramas to showcase the products that we make, so I can take them to shows and people can see what's going on. And this was my first attempt at making water to show off our kayaks and canoes. And with this, I just pretty much painted the bottom with some blue paint, sprinkled in a little bit of white, and then layer by layer, I built this up using Future floor polish. I found out later that they actually make water acrylics, but I didn't have any then, so I used what I could here, trying to get the ripples in and trying to get the little ripples in around where the oars and stuff are. Got some flamingos over there who've got their feet wet. A little surfer dude who's like, yeah, I'm not interested. The dirt in the background is actually dirt from my field. It's actually just a background shot of just to make it look more realistic. So next slide.
Okay.
Just a little close up here showing the ripples in the water around the kayak and the water around the flamingo's feet, and a little greenery there for them to hide. I tried to run the water up the dirt edge there to kind of meld it in, but I didn't really know what I was doing with the shore. So it looks okay, but next time my next one I did a little bit better. Next slide. And this is a little surprise. We got some marshy lands over here and some tall ferns. And we have an alligator sneaking out, going after the guy in the kayak. And again, you can try to see where I molded the water with the little alligator's feet and around there. And needless to say, that kayaker's looking over there going, it's time to paddle out of here. Next slide. This is from my second attempt at doing water. And if y'all had watched the 2 segments that I did on making the revenuers with Invisitrax, you'll spot these beavers and this water from that particular scenery. The revenuers actually walk around this. Got some cattails over there, some beavers in the water. And this time I actually put a little dirt and sand and stuff in the bottom. And there's some twigs, which the one beaver has in his mouth, which you really can't see. I didn't quite get this finished. You can kind of see my other green stuff over there. I've got the wax that I use to stick it in the ground. I haven't got the details in the dirt on that yet. But this was my second attempt, and this time I actually used some tinted acrylic that I found at Hobby Lobby that is used for making water. So this is kind of like a little swampy, marshy area that the beavers are in. And I love the cattails. I found those at Hobby Lobby as well, and I just had to use the cattails. I just thought they were so cool. Next up. Got it, there we go. Also on the same waterfront, we've got a nice, he could either be a nice black snake or he could be a water moccasin. I haven't really decided, but he's coming out of the water here on the shore, kind of sneaking up behind the bush. And actually, my thought was he could jump out and attack the revenuers, but then I just decided to have him curled up there. And needless to say, all these peoples and figures and kayaks and snakes and beavers are all things that Catspaw manufactures, because that's what I do, and that's what my dioramas do, is they kind of showcase our products. So pretty sure that's regular sand that I got from my neighbor's sandbox that I was using from the shore. And it worked pretty good. You can kind of see the crinkles there and the dirt and the stuff in the bottom. I was trying to get multicolor in there, so I got the light streaks and the dark streaks. Work in progress. Learning from you masters. Next slide, please. This is kind of the big shot of the revenue scene where you can see the whole big pond kind of sitting in the middle. And I just thought that was cool because you've got the reflection of the trees and stuff on top of the water, and it kind of looks lighter around the edges, and you got the beaver splashing around. So I just wanted to give you a full shot of the actual pond there with the cattails and the other greenery sitting around it. And of course, up on the hill, you've got Moonshine Mike running his still up there. So next, please. And this one, the water is actually just cardstock that I got from the area where you do your scrapbooking. And we've got a gentleman out there with his kayak, and he's being circled by sharks. And hopefully we got the video here. Do we have the video of him being circled by the sharks? Awesome.
Yep. Let's see if this thing works. There we go.
There we go. Oh, the audio's not playing, but that's okay. The Jaws theme actually plays with this, but we've got the sharks circling around. He's going one way and the sharks are going the other way, and they're trying to get him out there in the ocean.
Yep.
And that's probably it for me, because I'm still new at doing the whole diorama thing. I usually make all the parts. I usually don't put the parts together. So if anybody's got any questions?
Yeah, Sherry, I've got a question. The earlier diorama that had the kayakers, what scale was that in?
Oh, I'm sorry. All of this is 1/64 scale.
Okay, because I
start
swear
everything
the girl kayaker, it looked like she had actual hair.
well, I painted it really well. I mean, and the hair is actually molded in, so she's got the hair molded in. But all of these are S scale, and I'm pretty sure they're all available in HO, and I can scale them to O if needed. N, I would say I could try, but I won't guarantee I can do them in N because the paddles and stuff are so small.
Well, fantastic job on painting her hair. I really thought it was like Barbie hair or something.
Let's see if I can
Oh,
go back
thank
and
you.
find it
I appreciate
here.
it.
This one?
No, further back. Yeah, that's it.
Right there. Yeah, that
that's the
hair?
one. Yep.
Yeah, I found this book online about how to paint miniature soldiers, and it talked about doing different layers and highlights. So I was playing around with that, and then I found that with the Army Painter series of paints, they actually have these washes that you can put over, which help put the lines in. It kind of sticks in the lines and comes off the other part. So I was playing with that, trying to get a more realistic feel for hair and stuff. So thank you. That means I succeeded.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
All right. Any more questions for Sherry? All right. Well, thanks for sharing, Sherry. And it adds that the animations definitely add a dimension that we don't often see. So that's good.
You'll be seeing more.
Another piece of what makes my build successful is pulling in something like animations that we don't normally see. So
Great. Thank you.
all righty. Next up, we have Jeff Jordan. You up, Jeff?
I'm here, Chris.
All righty. Looks like you've got 5 slides tonight.
Okay. This was a challenge for me to come up with a water subject. I don't usually do that, but you may remember a couple of months ago, I showed a coal barge, and I was over helping operate a friend's HO layout, and he pulled out of his stash a 30-year-old kit of a coal barge. It was pretty much the proverbial box of sticks. And I put it together for him and he was very happy with it. And I said, barge needs a tugboat to go with it. So I went through my stash and found a kit that's been sitting around for a good 15 years and pulled it out for the tugboat. This tugboat kit, which is actually from an outfit that's appeared on this program previously, Seaport Models, but this is their old iteration. Today they do it in laser cut wood. This is resin and was a challenge to get all of the sides and decks and so forth all to go together. But with a little bit of effort, I got it together, and with a few modifications to the kit. There are a lot of nice brass details on the kit here. You can see the railing on the main, up on the deck there, the ladders on 2 levels, the supports for the navigation lights are all photo etched brass, and they wanted them just to be super glued in place. I actually carefully marked them off, drilled, and inserted them into the deck, making them much more secure for the finished model. And while I was working on it, I had, in my HO scale days, had done a lot of Lehigh Valley. And so I said, oh, this is fun. Let's make this into a Lehigh Valley steam tugboat. And I had a dickens of a time finding an actual photograph of a Lehigh Valley steam tugboat, but finally found one and found that it was actually quite close to the model kit. And again, I just made a couple of alterations, including digging through my decal box to get a Lehigh Valley diamond for the stack, and to come up with a name board, which I actually ended up making with my word processor. It's kind of neat that the word processor permits you to flip the background from white to black and to fill the color of the lettering. And so I got that name board you can see on the front, just above the bumper there, and it says Lehigh. It also appears on the other side and on the stern. But an interesting challenge to build a tugboat model and somebody who doesn't build a lot of boats. They're actually, I don't know how well, see the next picture here. There is an interior in the pilot house with the wheel and the telegraph and the binnacle. And when you put the model together, they kind of disappeared down. And so I built up the floor to raise them up. And so in person, you can actually see that there's an interior in there. And it's all fitted out per regulation with the appropriate navigation lights and the like. And so I was pretty happy with the finished model, especially considering how warped the resin was when I started with it. I don't remember if I sent you one with the barge in there as well.
I think
next
so.
slide. Oh, okay, good. Oh, there we can see the stern with again, the name board I put on there. The grill work on the back there is a very nice piece of photo etched brass. And you can see that the lifeboat is appropriately rigged on the davits as well, which took a little bit of doing with tweezers to get the line to run the right way and to tie off on the cleats. But I think it really adds to the finished boat. Next slide.
There's your barge.
There she is. Okay. And that's the coal barge, which I had shown you previously. And you can see that this tugboat is actually designed for this kind of work. It's called a boot heel. And that elevated pilot house is designed specifically to give a view over the barges that the tugboat is pushing around. This whole assemblage now resides on my friend's HO scale layout. He has a large HO scale layout with a large portion of it is in New York waterfront on the west side with all kinds of boat activity. And so the barge and tugboat fit right in on the waterfront there. I previously told you about the barge. The barge literally was a box with a piece of wood, a piece of cardboard, a piece of plastic, and some drawings. And you basically had to make all of your own parts to make the deck and the bin for the coal is actually parts cut out of a single sheet of evergreen styrene plastic and then all glued together. And it did come with the little bitty metal fittings. And the coal load I actually made by taking a piece of the styrofoam insulation, carving it to the shape I wanted, painted it black, and then glued on a great deal of coal. And I intentionally picked a fairly coarse grind coal because I thought you can really see the coal load, and it looks like a loose coal load. It came out pretty nicely. And it's something you would see around the New York Harbor there, and with a little bit of rust and a little bit of bird droppings and the like. And we got another one from the.
Yeah, whose coal barge is this?
I was afraid you were going to ask me that. The kit was over 30 years old, and the company is long gone. But literally all, I think it may have been a Sheepscott model, but very, very old. Because literally the hull was a block of wood, and it came with a sheet of cardboard and a sheet of plastic, and the metal castings and the drawings to tell you how to make all your own parts.
Okay, cool.
The tugboat as well, you can see that it's got on the hull the rub rails. Those are all separately applied with a little bit of guidance from the kit instructions. But considering I don't build a lot of boats, I was pretty happy with the outcome there.
Yeah, it looked tugboat came out really nice. Actually, they both did.
Thank you.
But
and in the background behind the tugboat there, you can see a little bit of Colorado.
Yeah. All right. Are there any questions for Jeff? All right. Well, thanks, Jeff, for sharing. And we will
Thank
now
you.
move on. Phil Scandura, are you up?
I'm here.
All right. Looks like you've got 8 slides tonight.
All righty. So this is a project that my company did for a museum in Fountain Hills. And the idea was to do vignettes of life along the Verde River. And we'll see all those in a minute.
Okay. Were they in any particular scale? Sorry.
This is G scale.
Okay.
Some of the challenges I'll talk about as we get there, but I do have a disclaimer for everyone. There are no trains, no buildings, and no boats. So.
All right.
And we'll go through these early slides quickly. This is a water tower display that they have that we chose to put the exhibit in. And on the walls, you can see these glass cases, which is what the actual exhibits are in. Next slide. And that's just a different view of it. These are slides out of the proposal to help the customer understand what they were going to get and me understand what I was building. Next. So these are a couple of the inspirations that I used for the work. The one on the left is a river scene off the Verde, and the one on the right is Jack Swilling digging the various canals that made Phoenix possible as far as bringing water to Phoenix, because one of the 4 scenes is a canal scene without any water. Next. So here's 2 of the scenes. As I said, there's no trains, there's no boats, there's no buildings. It's all wildlife and people. The first challenge was that the 3 water scenes, and we'll see see the third one in a second, all represent the same bend in the river. So the idea was that at that particular bend in the river, at some time in the day, the wildlife, or in the evening, the wildlife were out there using the river. At another point in time, the Native American women were out drawing water from the river. And then in a minute, we'll see the other scene. So all 3 of them had to be as close to the same as possible from a modeling standpoint. So it's like trying to build the same model 3 times. Another challenge is the water, you'll notice, let's go back
Oh, sure. Sorry. There we go.
right there. Thank you. The wildlife, the water you'll see has no edge. There is no edge of your layout. There's no dam. You're able to see the layers into the water. Getting that to work was quite the challenge. It was using an acrylic, making a wall around the water with an acrylic, adding glue so it wouldn't leak, and it leaked anyway. And then hoping that that acrylic would pop off when everything was set. This water product is was the most recent Woodland Scenics water product that was like water in a box. I think it's a 2-part resin, and there's paints that you can use to tint the water and paints to paint the bottom and so forth. So the first time I'd used that product, I hadn't done water for years. And the last time I did it was with the pellets that you melted with a heat gun, which was their own catastrophe. And I found that that stuff cracks over time, whereas this has been pretty resilient. The animals, the majority of the animal figures are 3D printed from Mini Prints, the gentleman up in Canada. All of the people, which you'll see more, let's go to the next slide, are all from Sherry and Cat's Paw. And she not only did the printing, but she did the painting for me as well. And the trees are custom made from a gentleman on Etsy, because when you're doing something like this for a client, unlike doing it for yourself, you're kind of on a schedule. You can't take too long, and you have to trade how many hours do I want to spend building trees versus buying a tree that looks close enough. You can, if these were close-ups, you can see into the water. There are fish in the water. There are critters on the bottom of the riverbed in the water. Someone was asking earlier about how you prepare your base before you pour the water product. And of course, you know, you've got the paints that paint the different colors to simulate depths. There's gravel that's been glued down. There's twigs, rocks, so forth. The challenge becomes when you start pouring the water. If you pour it too fast, you get air bubbles that form around those things in the water. So that was also a challenge, trying to get that to work just right. And I think that's it.
I think there's a few more.
There might be a couple of, so these are just seeing the different scenes that are attached to the wall. Those are custom acrylic cabinets that we had built. You've got a curved wall, so all of the cabinets are curved. The shelving is curved. The back of the exhibits are curved, so it was getting the right radius and so forth. But they were very happy with it. It was somewhat nerve-wracking for me because I hadn't done that much water in a long time. I hadn't worked with this product. I probably should have done a test pour on a throwaway, but I just decided to go for broke and just do it. And thank goodness it worked out. Next slide. Is there one more?
Okay.
Oh, that's
this is
just
the
me.
last one.
Yeah, that's just me. Any questions?
All right. Well, thanks for sharing, Phil. This once again is a great example of what you can do with the different challenges for the My Builds. So thanks for sharing, Phil.
You're welcome.
And we'll move on. Looks like Gary Shergold is up next. You around, Gary?
I'm here.
Ah, there you are. All right. Looks like you've got 8 slides tonight.
Yeah, this is actually, this is the only water scene on my layout. You've seen my backdrop when I'm on new tracks. Well, at the bottom of the large trestle that's behind me is this water scene. And what happens is water comes off the cliff sides, runs down on the backside of the trestle and drains into this man-made pond. And what happens is the locals gather and do a little bit of canoeing and sunbathing. Next slide. And it's a little bit of a close-up. You can see where they've dammed the water off. A couple of the canoeists in there enjoying the water. The water is Woodland Scenics. Again, it was the bottom has rocks and sticks and little odds and ends on the bottom of it, and then the water poured over and coloring put in prior to the pouring of the water. Next slide. This is showing the bathers up on the rocks. If you look up to the top left hand, they've got a little bit of a outhouse up there when they have to use that. And just underneath the trees on the rocks are 4 bathers enjoying the sun. The castings are all done myself with different molds that I created off of real rocks, and then they're colored. Next slide. And that's another close-up showing the bathers. The lady on the bed there, she does have a bathing suit on. And then the 2 gentlemen, one's sitting against a rock, and then there's another gentleman laying down on top of the rocks. They're just enjoying themselves. Next slide. Now this is a boat that I had built. I switch every once in a while from railroad modeling and get into building other things. This is a board by board construction. It was a kit I picked up a long time ago. I don't know the name. I started building it. I've never done a board by board before. A little bit challenging. But the boards were, you put a frame together and then start laying the boards in. Next slide.
Okay.
Just a little close up. The engine house is detailed inside. I use that crystal clear for the windows. The stacks that are coming up, which are the fresh air stacks, those were scratch built as the same with the life ways on the side of the boat, on top of the boat. Next slide. Showing another view. The anchors are hanging. Did the rigging. Windows on the front are also that crystal clear. And I think we have one more.
Yep. Last one.
And it's showing a top view of the boat. Shows you the boards and the doors, windows, some of the rigging.
Did you have to steam the board so that they would fit around the hull, or was it prefabbed, or how did that work?
Yeah, the where you see the cabin area on top, that came as one piece, and it was scribed already. Same with the roof on top of the cabin. It came with scribed wood and was cut and shaped and then fitted on.
Okay. All right. Are there any questions for Gary? All right. Thanks for sharing, Gary. And we'll move on. Our last person up tonight is Father Ron. You up, Father Ron?
Yep, I'm right here.
All right. Looks like you've got 2 slides tonight.
Okay, this is a couple of water towers. The one on the left with the green roof is from ITLA, ITLA. And I basically just followed the instructions for it. It is the core is circles that are glued together in a vertical kind of way, and then that outer woodworking, the slats are basically wound around that, and you can see that in the second one, which is from Mind Mount Models. What I did for those is it's just a strip of wood. I haven't weathered them yet to make them look like individual, but it's a strip of wood that's been laser cut, and I stick a cup of water in the microwave and get it to boil, and then throw the strip in, which softens the wood and enables me to wrap it around something first to get sort of the curvature, and then to glue it onto the substructure. Mind Mount Models uses a core of a dowel. It's a 7/8 of an inch dowel. But anyway, I use the rubber bands then to hold it in place while the glue dries. So obviously they still need pipes, the feeder pipe for the water tower. One of the reasons why I got into this is that a lot of buildings, I remember driving into Chicago on the expressway, and you up high to avoid all the railroad tracks down below, you see an awful lot of old water towers on the south side of the city. Maybe they're in use, maybe they aren't in use, but they're still there. And many years ago, that was how water was channeled throughout buildings, was piped up to a water tower and then piped down into the building. So I thought, since a lot of the models we build are from the 40s and 50s, they should have water towers on them. So I decided to start modeling them and find out how they're built, and make models of them, maybe even doing some scratch building of water towers. These are both HO scale. I have one from another manufacturer that's N scale. It's almost exactly the same size as ITLA's water tower. So it's going to be interesting to see. I thought maybe a railroad water tower in N scale might be a nice rooftop water tower in HO scale. So we'll see how that looks when I get it built. Next slide. And in many places in the world, a bathroom is called a water closet, a WC. So I built a two-holer here. So I thought we should include that as well. That's something that uses water or needs water somewhere along the line. So this is part of one of Walther's vintage trackside structures. It's a two-holer. So.
Yep.
That's it.
All right. Let's see. Up next, we've got the challenge giveaway. So hey, Phil, do you have the voting up?
I do not.
Okay.
Unfortunately, did not get that up. That was not didn't talk about it. So I didn't get a list or anything. So,
yeah, I thought I'd sent you one.
Oh, well, I tell you what, we're going to have to do it next week then.
Okay. All right. No big deal. All right. We'll get it next week.
So everybody
Okay.
remember for next week.
All right. And let's see here. Please make sure that you've voted in that survey that we sent out. The next My Build is July 24th and is featuring you. Please get us your photos by, let's see, the 24th. So about the 21st, if you could have those to me, that would be greatly appreciated. That way I can spend a little bit of time getting everything organized and put together. All right, so that was, all right, so yeah, one of the things you're voting on is what the upcoming My Build challenge themes are. So please, I will put that, or Phil, do you have that? You've got a little bit of different link on yours. But this is the link that that Google spit out for me. So please make sure that you go in there and vote on that link, that on those items. That way we can better determine what our future My Build challenges will be. I think tonight we had some good people, some good entries, a lot of different things, and show you what you can do in a lot of different ways with your modeling. So I think that's I guess that's about it, unless anybody has anything to throw in, Greg or anyone.